Hey, everybody, it's noon Pacific time on Monday. So even though the holidays are just around the corner and some of you may be listening to this from home with hot cocoa and a fire and all of that good stuff, we are here because it's the last content chat of the year. And in keeping with our usual festive holiday spirit, we have a nice little thing for you to percolate on and think about over the holidays, which is we've got Stephanie Stahl from the Content Marketing Institute here. And Stephanie is going to give us everything we need to know from the recent B2B content marketing research. So Stephanie, thank you so much for coming here today.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's about time. I've been meaning to get you on here to talk about one of these. And as soon as I saw this research come out, I'm like, I can't think of anything I'd rather chat with you about than B2B research, because B2B is my life. I'm not sure how that happened. It happened so long ago.
It's a big part of my life too. Though I could say, Erica, we could chat maybe for an hour just about dogs, right?
Also,
and dog pillows and things like that. So there are more things than B2B we could chat about, but I'm very happy to be chatting about B2B. So.
Well, let's start by diving in, and maybe you could talk to me about, what did you learn about those high performance B2B teams, and what really sets them apart from everybody else? Because I think, it's always nice to see what's typical and average, but most of us B2B marketers that I know, we want to be at the top of the leaderboard. So how do we get there?
Yeah. So the study we did this year was very interesting. We saw some trends that we might not have been expecting, but it was very interesting. So I would encourage everybody to read the full report. But our researcher, Lisa Merton-Beets, puts together this piece every year, and she helped distill some of the important parts this year. And one of the things that sort of separates the top performers, and we ask our survey takers in the B2B space to sort of assess their own content marketing approach. And those who said that their organization is either extremely or very successful is what we consider the top performers. And of all the companies we surveyed, about 28% fell into that bucket. And then we ask them, well, what do you attribute? What factors do you attribute to this extremely or very successful performance? And the number one thing that came out from all of these marketers is knowing our audience. That's what separates them from the pack, knowing our audience. These are companies, these are marketers who have put in the work, they've done the research, they've built and nurtured relationships with their audience, and they know them. And this really can't be understated, right? It seems obvious on one hand, but it really can't be understated that knowing your audience is the key, to great performance and success.
And that seems so obvious, right, Stephanie?
Right.
But, I don't know about you, but I've certainly in the past worked, in or with organizations where marketing wasn't even necessarily allowed to talk to any of the customers. They had to get all of their information second or third hand. And that makes it really hard, to actually get to know them, especially if you don't have the data on, what they're actually consuming from content too.
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, chatting with your sales professionals to, know what they know or to understand what they know about the customers, or your executive teams or whatever. But it's so critical for marketers to have that one-to-one kind of relationship as well. Because, the content marketers are the ones that are creating the content that's necessary. And so you're right. In the past, might not have had that kind of access, but it's so important. It's what sets these B2B marketers apart. If that's not happening in your organization, I would strongly urge you to try to change that culture. Some of the other things that these top performers told us that, help set them apart and make them highly successful. They set goals that align to their organization's objectives, right? So this is a great way to make sure you are having that direct contact too with the customer. If your goals are aligned with the organization's objectives, then everybody's working towards the same goals, right? They also said they effectively measure their content performance. It's critical, more critical today than ever, I think, especially for any marketing teams that feel like they need to justify their investments and their resources and that sort of thing. These high performers also said that they show thought leadership. So in their content, in the content that they're creating, they are showing thought leadership. They're not just, product, sell. They are all about thought leadership. That's super important. They collaborate well with other teams. Maybe it's sales, maybe it's customer service. But they say they collaborate well within the organization, and they have a documented strategy. They know what they're aiming for, right? They know what they're trying to get in terms of success, and so they have a strategy to help guide them. So.
That all makes sense to me, especially with the documented strategy, because when you have that in place with the agreed upon KPIs, that's how you're able to say no when you're asked to do random acts of content.
Yes.
You don't have that documented strategy and you say no, someone's like, well, but why? And your answer is just going to be something you pulled out
the
of
strategy. Yes, it's here. We've got a strategy. We can tell you why. Yeah, that's so important. So important. Yeah. We also, asked or looked at some other dimensions that kind of identify how these top performers differ a bit more from their peers. And not surprisingly, they're backed by leaders in the company. And going back to what I said before, if they're setting goals that align with the rest of the organization, that makes it a little easier for the company's leaders to back you. So that's a difference. They're also, not surprisingly, more likely to have, really robust content management strategies and technologies. They've got the stack that can help them, succeed.
They can scale and they can measure. And I mean, that's how you can prove that you're, meeting your goals. And that's also how you can have goals that are not to publish 12, blog posts in a quarter, because that's a terrible goal. You don't want to have those, quantity goals. You want to have goals that show the impact you're making to the organization.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. Yes.
That kind of brings us to, some of the challenges, that people are having. And I think, certainly it's a perpetual challenge of being able to measure, what the return on investment is in the content program. But I'd love to hear some of the other big challenges that people are anticipating to be facing next year.
Yeah. So this year we asked about challenges in 3 different ways. We wanted to know about content creation challenges. We wanted to know about what we would call situational challenges, which I'll talk a little bit about, and then challenges with scaling their content. Okay. So these are all 3 big areas where we see B2Bs have to sort of, haggle. The biggest challenge was creating content for our audience. Now, that means the right content for the audience.
Yeah.
Getting back to what we talked about just a minute ago about knowing that audience. So you can see why that might be a challenge for some of the, maybe they're not the top performers, but creating content, the right content for the audience. Last year and in years past, what we would see is the biggest challenge was not being able to create enough content. But like you said, it's not just about, we've got to do 12 blog posts in, the first 2 months of the year or whatever. It's not about quantity anymore. What's nice about this is that the focus is off of that quantity and more on what matters most for the audience. What keeps this audience up at night? How can you help solve those problems? So I love this. I love that this is the challenge, because I'm going to love when it's not a challenge, because this is what we all should be doing as content marketers, right? Creating.
It's the right challenge.
It's the right challenge. It is the right challenge to have. Other things we heard were, consistency in content, which is important. I mean, I know, you have talked about this before, Erika, and we talk about it all the time. It's like, you want to be consistent in your publishing, whether you are, maybe you're doing something once a day, maybe you're doing something once a week, once a month, whatever it is. The consistency actually matters. That's how you get that engagement, and people want to stick with you. They anticipate that you might have something. So consistency is an issue. Differentiating content, looking at what's out there already, what competitors are doing. We don't need just more content. We need more great content, and we need more of the right content for our audiences. So,
and I think that goes back around to the thought leadership, because if it's truly thought leadership, which is, a person sharing their experiences and having a new point of view and backing it up, that is so valuable, because we want to hear from other people like ourselves, how they're
yes,
doing things. So, I mean, that
yes,
totally makes sense to me.
absolutely. Peers love to hear from peers. Any company who's trying to make decisions love to hear from thought leaders. All of these things are important. So, and again, that's kind of where we see some of the top performers really standing out. So, when we talk about the situational challenges, I don't think this is going to surprise anybody, but guess what the top one was? Lack of resources, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this has been a big issue for a lot of companies over the past year, whether it's due to turnover or layoffs or the economy. This is an issue, and I don't necessarily think it's an easy one to solve, but that was the top reason for these situational challenges. Others included, aligning content with the buyer's journey. Again, know your audience, and then it makes it easier to align that content. Aligning efforts between sales and marketing. This is an age-old problem, right?
Yeah.
Some companies are fortunate enough to have sales marketing teams that help with content just for sales enablement. Not all B2Bs have that. It's a luxury. If you do, it's great. But if you don't, then it's so critical to have that alignment between marketing and sales to ensure the sales team has the right content to help them do their jobs as well. Other situational things include workflow, content approvals. We've all heard the nightmares. Maybe you've had some clients in the past, Erika, who have told you that, oh my gosh, when I was, doing this, I had to, it was 6 months before we got approvals from everybody, and everybody had to weigh in, and it's still a problem for a lot of big companies.
Yeah.
And it causes a lot of fatigue. By the time something is fully approved, parts of it can be outdated. So,
And then it has to go back to the approval process.
yes, and then you start, and this is crazy, and that's sort of a waste of everybody's time, right? Some B2Bs told us too that they had difficulty accessing subject matter experts, whether that was within the company or externally, who could help with the content. And I sympathize with that, because you might have subject matter experts within your company. They may not be available or comfortable or whatever to help you with your content. But I always tell content marketers, try to seek out those people. Make friends with these people.
And
See if
I'm going to chime in and give a plug for the CMI Slack group, because both for this and the resource challenge, I hear frequently from clients that they don't know where to find a freelancer who has a specific specialty area for their content creation. But you know what? Every single day on the CMI Slack group, people are sharing those kinds of resources and referrals. And so literally, if you're looking for an SME or a freelancer, you 100% can find them on the Slack. So I just have to put that out there, because it's such a great resource.
Thanks for saying that. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing better than when you have a community who is invested in helping others in the community. And there are so many talented people out there right now who are either looking for jobs or looking for freelance work, who could potentially help you. So you just have to do just a little bit of work, or get in these communities like our Slack community, or others that you might find on LinkedIn, to help you find some really valuable resources. So thanks for mentioning that, Erika.
Of course.
Appreciate that. Yeah. And then the third item of challenges I mentioned was scaling content, and 48%-ish. It was almost 50% told us that they don't do enough content repurposing, which is a shame, because repurposing is a great strategy, especially if you're lacking in resources.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic strategy, and so I think we all know that AI will likely make that easier in the future if it isn't already, for some, but there's still struggles around lack of communication between groups within especially a large company, sort of the silos. I actually hate that word silos, but it's true. These silos still exist. A lot of B2Bs don't have structured content production processes in place. Some lack an editorial calendar or, an efficient sort of deadline management protocol. And so all of these make it very difficult for companies to understand what content already exists,
Yeah.
B, what content we might be able to repurpose from another group. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. And C, a way to sort of manage the production of it. But repurposing is such a viable strategy. Do you agree? Erika?
Oh, 100%. And I mean, going back, pointing at CMI again as an example, I wrote the how to 5 steps to really, define and document your brand voice article for you guys a billion years ago, and it's still a high performer. But we've also updated it twice because, there's always something new to add. And when people love a piece of content, it's worthwhile to just do that re-up. So now you guys have 3 blog posts that, are an evolution over time on that topic, which then also from a search standpoint means you guys are going to be at the top every time because you've got 3 really great posts on it.
Yeah.
So
look for those gems and update them. Absolutely. Maybe some of your best content can be repurposed for a webinar topic. Maybe you can repurpose some of it for social media graphics. I mean, there are all kinds of ways to use a really great piece of content like the one Erika created for CMI in different ways instead of, again, recreating the wheel, and especially if you're short on resources. So look for those pieces and make the most of them if you can.
I love that. And I think, something that can really happen is maybe when you are starting out, your budget only, allows for you to do blog posts. And certainly while blog posts are a type of content that can be very cost effective and perform well, there's a lot of other content that we know is really important. So in the survey, I know you asked folks, what kinds of content was really working. And I'd love to hear what the top performing content was for B2B marketers.
Yeah, the most successful, tied at 53% in our survey. Customer case studies. Again, peers like to hear about other peers.
Yeah.
Customer case studies and video content. And so if you're not yet investing in video content, it's time to start thinking about it. Those were the highest performing types of content of all of the B2Bs that we surveyed, and in a big way. Like I say, 53% said, case studies. It's that with the customer case studies, it's not, you don't want those sort of, I'm trying to think of, you don't want those sort of bland, yes, we worked with this customer and they had a really great result and they were happy with their business and they want to do business with again. No, these customer case studies need to talk about, what were the challenges these customers, what were the obstacles they were dealing with? Where did they fail in the past? What's that?
What is the pain?
What's the pain?
Yeah. Pain.
What were the pain points? What did they struggle with? And then talk about how they solve those problems. So they've got to get pretty deep to be considered a worthwhile piece of content, to actually help somebody else take some action. So think about that when you're doing that. Other things that ranked fairly high were thought leadership articles, whether they are in an ebook fashion or a white book or, white paper fashion or something like that. Again, getting to the thought leadership of it all, not just the let me sell you a product kind of thing. You mentioned blogs. Blogs still perform very well for B2Bs, short articles, blogs, whatever you want to call them. Research reports are also very popular. Since we're talking about a research report today, they tend to be very popular for us. I can tell you that. And they are also one of those types of content that you can repurpose in any number of ways. You can take your research report. You can be chatting about it with Erika on a live event. You can create a webinar topic out of it. You can post all sorts of charts and stats on social media, all designed to show thought leadership from your original research. So,
well, the thing that I'm hearing that's missing there, though, is social media. And I feel like the past year has been so different and so strange because of the evolution of Twitter into X. Because on the B2B side, we used to see so much social selling and so much engagement and interaction happening on that platform. And, so many people that were active there now are on LinkedIn. So I'd love to hear, what other B2B marketers are saying about how their use of social media has changed.
Yeah, so it has changed pretty dramatically for sure. Like you said, LinkedIn is sort of reigns supreme among B2B marketers. It was very clear in our research. It wasn't surprising, but it was very clear in our research. Both Facebook and Twitter X, both on the decrease among all of our B2B marketers that we surveyed. Those were the two social channels that were decreasing the most. Again, not necessarily surprising. TikTok, 19%, I think it was, around there, 19% or so of B2B marketers said they were using TikTok or experimenting with TikTok. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's double what it was last year.
Yeah.
So clearly on the increase while others are on the decrease. Let me see if I can find that stat. I think I wrote it down. I think it was, 72% of those we surveyed, though, have increased their usage of LinkedIn this year. So
I believe that because I feel like I'm seeing so many more interesting posts and conversations happening on LinkedIn. Like people, they're taking finally a very collaborative and inquisitive approach. So I love it because it's, such a nice change.
I agree. I love it too. I mean, I just look at my own habits. I'm spending more time on LinkedIn, and I'm enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. So, for anybody who's watching this, if you're not yet spending much time on LinkedIn, give it a whirl. It's worth it. It's worth it. I mean, there's so many good discussions going on. There are great communities. There are great newsletters. It's a great place to be right now for B2B marketers. So I would say embrace it.
And for those of you who are wondering, does it really drive traffic when you're sharing your content? Although, there have been some reports that you can kind of get throttled if you're sharing links directly versus sharing them in the comments. I will tell you that in general, across my clients, I normally see 2 to 3x the number of folks clicking through to the number of people, liking a post. So, so you might get 50 people liking a post, but then, they'd be getting 400, 500 people clicking through.
That's great.
So it's definitely worthwhile even for that kind of stuff, but you do have to be careful because I know some folks have said that if you're consistently sharing links, that it might, you might not show up as much in everybody's feed. So you definitely have to kind of experiment and see what's going to work for you.
Find a balance there. Yeah. But that's great. That's great to hear. Yeah.
So that brings us, of course, to the biggest thing people are experimenting with, which is AI.
What is that? Yes.
So we went 25 minutes before I brought up the big AI question.
All right. Yeah. So we put this study in the market. It was during the summertime, springish summertime, right? And as we all know, AI is moving fast. It is
Yeah.
moving fast. So, but what we heard then, 72% of the B2B marketers we surveyed were using generative AI tools, right? Most of them were using these tools for things like brainstorming new topics or researching headlines, helping assist with a draft of an article, things like that. That's what we were seeing. Some were using it to, outline assignments, to generate graphics and images. Not a lot in our survey. Now, when we do this again next year, we'll probably see some higher numbers, right? We're going to see some higher numbers.
Definitely.
There's no question about it. And while we didn't ask about other uses, like headline writing and things like, we know a lot of writers will do that. They will use these tools. What's a good headline for a topic on XYZ? Things like that.
Or use the co-schedule headline analyzer to take something that we've done and tell us, is it really that good, or are we just enamored of it? So that way we know.
Give us a rating. Like, is this good? Should we use it? Yeah. So I think a lot of that happens more than what we were necessarily documenting in our research this year. I think we will, hear more and more about these tools helping with the repurposing of content that we were just talking about. We could take an hour-long chat like this and have an AI tool kind of condense it down into an executive summary. Many of us already use these kinds of tools to create transcripts for us.
Thank goodness. I do not miss the days of having to type up transcripts.
Can you imagine still doing that now? Honestly. So it's going to be interesting to see how much it evolves and develops, over the next year, because it is moving fast. There's no question about it.
Definitely. I'm definitely excited to see kind of how folks find ways to use it for good, because I think there's a lot of good use cases.
Yes, for good. Yes, absolutely. Good. Thank you for saying it that way, for good. Yes, I agree. So,
but in addition to AI, what are some of the other technologies that have bubbled up as being where, folks are getting really good, support for the content marketing teams and all the things that we do? What are some of the must-have technologies?
The highest ranked one in the survey this year, analytics tools, not surprisingly, right? To measure performance, to measure your effectiveness, to determine ROI. That's so critical for marketers.
Defend our spend.
Yes, absolutely. Defend the spend, defend the need for resources, have these proof points that the content is performing for you. So that was the biggie. Social media publishing and related analytics, also a big one among the survey respondents. Email marketing software. I just read an article the other day about how Gen Zs don't like to read email and that sort of thing, but it is still a channel that performs extremely well for many businesses. So calendaring, workflow tools, all of those things that tend to inhibit team performance. Those are tools that we're seeing more and more being purchased. Obviously, content management systems are in there, and CRMs and things like that too. But I wasn't surprised about the analytics tools being the highest ranked this year, just because I do think there is such an amount of pressure on marketing leaders these days to show the value of what we all do in this discipline that we're in. So
totally. And what's so hard is I feel like we relied so heavily in the past on having cookies being enabled everywhere so that way we could see those touch points and see over time how somebody engaged with our content. And over the past year, with all of the new privacy regulations and changes, and then of course Google sunsetting the old Google Analytics and taking a new approach that wasn't reliant on having those cookies enabled, because let's face it, all that direct traffic we're getting on our websites, it's not people typing in our URL, it's people who have blocked tracking through
Yeah.
their privacy settings. So, now we have to figure out, how can we do all of that? Like, can we create something amazing on our websites that requires people to log in? So that way, by logging in, they're accepting that cookie. So then we can see who they are and what they do.
Yeah.
I think it really means we have to be creative. Otherwise, folks are doing a lot more guessing than before. And you
No
don't want
doubt.
to rely on first and last touch, because those are going to just cut out most of your content, and you can't make decisions based on that.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I know that's a struggle for a lot of people, the whole attribution. And but yeah, I agree. It's harder. It's harder now. Probably the case for having an owned audience, a subscribed audience, is more powerful than
Yeah.
ever. And we're only going to see privacy laws continuing to evolve, and it'll be harder and harder. And so um, having a subscribed audience, or having a better and easier and clearer way to know who's engaging with you, is just going to be so critical. So critical. So
Totally agreed.
yeah.
So of course, I have to ask, are we going to get any money? Are our budgets going to grow? Or is this going to be the classic, let's do even more with even less? Because it certainly feels like, from a number of people standpoint, there's fewer people, but what are budgets looking like overall?
Yeah, there is good news there. I'm happy to say that 45% of the respondents that we surveyed said their budget would increase in 2024. So good for them. That's fantastic. 42%, I think was the number, said they'd stay the same. And then a small number, 6% or so, said their budget would decrease. And so that's good news. Now, we know with the economy and things can change, obviously. But I think a lot of B2Bs are feeling hopeful about 2024, and being able to spend more to get the resources they need, or to get the technologies they need to perform even better. So I'm really happy with that news, and I hope it carries through. But I think that's a really positive sign for what's ahead.
Totally agreed, because if we are doing things right, we can use AI to get rid of some of those boring, repetitive tasks and really streamline workflows, which means that even those budgets that are staying the same could hopefully go a little bit farther, because you're able to have people be doing the work that people need to do, and having the machines do the work that they're better at doing.
Absolutely. Lean on those machines for more of the mundane tasks, lean on the humans for the more creative tasks, and teams without those budget increases or decreases really could potentially do more with less. So
Exactly.
true.
Finally.
Yeah. Finally. Right. Finally. Yes.
Well, with excuse me, with all of this data in mind, and all the conversations you've been having with folks since publishing this, what are kind of your big takeaways, and your crystal ball looking at the year? What do you think? What are your takeaways, and what should people be doing in light of all of this in order to have really solid footing from further content programs?
I will make a quick plug for a piece we just did a few weeks ago, which is our annual predictions piece on content trends for the new year. 60 some experts within our community weighed in, and it's worth a read to hear what's on the minds of these people who are either practitioners in the industry or experts in the industry, thought leaders. It's a great read. So in addition to the research we're talking about now, but I mean, I would, obviously I'd say that AI is only going to get more prevalent, right? It's not going to go away. It's not going to lessen. So now's the time to really prepare to determine how to best take advantage of it in the ways that are most efficient and most helpful for your organization. And I would say along with that would be a need to have corporate guidance on what you can and can't do. I'm actually surprised by the number of large and all size companies that don't actually have that kind of plan right now. And it's time. It's time. And it's a plan, obviously, that needs to evolve as the technology evolves. It can't just be set in stone and, this is it for the next 10 years.
You can't use it because people are going to use it on their personal devices. So come on.
They are going to. Yes, they are going to. So there's no question about that. So, but I would also say, look, we were just talking, Erika, the prevalence of AI doesn't necessarily mean the humans don't matter. In fact, the humans matter even more. And so it's really a good time to get laser focused on your audience. Think about the top performers in this study. They know their audience. That's what sets them apart. So now's the time to really know your audience. And so don't let AI get in the way of that. Make sure it happens because of that, if anything. And I'd say too, with all the shifts that we're seeing in social media and all the changes there, that anything you can do to optimize your existing content, repurpose your existing content, maybe revisit your distribution strategy. Do you really need to be on every social media network out there? Is it time to sunset something?
Yeah.
Do you really need to be doing all of those white papers if no one's downloading them? Turn your attention to something else. This is a time to think about all the things you'd like to be doing, but you got to give up something too along the way. Like a lot of brands, you can't just keep piling on unless you're adding significant resources. But I would say just really look at what's not working in your organization and maybe let it go.
Yeah.
And I can't overstate video, right? The data are there. People like to consume video content. And we've done some really great articles and case studies on, some of the award winners in the CMAs, the Content Marketing Awards. And some of them are really high end, but it doesn't have to be really high end, So I would say put some emphasis on investigating how you can either start creating video, doing more video, improving your video content in a way that works with your budget. And there's plenty of budget-friendly ways to do that, no question. So, and, let me end on a boring note with my crystal ball, but you have to have guidelines, you've got to have.
Governance is your friend.
Yes, guidelines are your friend. Documented strategies, that's your friend too. Having those kinds of guidelines and playbooks are important because other parts of the business operate this way. So why shouldn't content marketing? So I think that will be very helpful in the coming year.
Not going to lie, that is a big focus of everything that I am working on for the next year, like stuff I'm writing about, presentations I'm giving, because when I'm going into organizations, they don't have a lot of this stuff documented. They don't have a documented brand voice or a style guide or, their content strategy. So then how can you use AI to scale? You can't even use people to scale if you don't have any of this stuff documented.
Right.
And so if you're trying to use technology, but you don't have it, really, decided upon, agreed upon how you're going to go about doing things, what your content is that makes it different. If you haven't thought all that stuff through, all that AI can help you do is create more cruddy content faster. And nobody's asking for that. Nobody's clamoring for more boring content. That's
No, they are not. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that's one of your focus. That's fantastic.
I'm a huge nerd. And so I love this stuff. And finally now, I think folks are, willing to hear the conversation and to understand, we do have to actually spend that time because we're going so fast to get things done. But if you're reinventing the wheel every single time, you're not being efficient and you're not going to be able to scale.
And as you said earlier, you're going to be kind of caught up in this, people just asking you for a piece of content every day, like, hey, can I get this? Can I get that? Robert Rose calls it the vending machine model, so what should I order today? And then somebody's got to produce it. Like, you've got to have a strategy and a plan so that you can say yes or no when those requests come to you. And you've got a valid reason for saying it. So,
And, unless of course you want to be a shared services organization and just take orders and deliver things, but then you also need to not be surprised when you are replaced by a machine.
right. Absolutely. 100%. Yes.
Well, we definitely do want to open it up to questions, but as we talked about earlier, we know that this week is a lot of folks have their kids out of school, and so they're not working. So I'm going to make a pitch for if you leave a question on LinkedIn and tag us, Stephanie and I would be thrilled to get back to you on that. And of course, this is also going to go up. The recap of this will go up on the website, along with the video replay on YouTube. So there's plenty of places. And if you think of a question that you have that you'd love our feedback on, take this opportunity, because Stephanie, I know you, in addition to being, your organization fielding the survey, I mean, you're talking to content marketers every single day. And so I feel like you really have your finger on the pulse of what's happening here. So it's so lovely to have had you here to share your insights, because it's one thing to read the report, but it's something else to really kind of get that extra color around it. So thank you.
No, I'm so happy to be here. And as I said to Erika before we went live, I kind of feel like we might be the only two people working this week, because it's very quiet, a lot of out of office messages, but that's the beauty of watching things on demand. So if you're watching us on demand, welcome. Thank you. And I'd be very happy to answer any questions about the research or anything else, related to content marketing. We've got a lot of resources at CMI. We've got an amazing editorial team, amazing research team. I mean, we've got a lot of data that we can help with, and happy to do so. And Erika, it's always nice to talk to you. I hope I'm going to see you in real life at Content Marketing World next year.
I hope
we
to
can
see you in San Diego.
Yes. And you can present on some of these things that you're researching now, and that would be fantastic. So.
That's my plan. I got to tell you, as much as Cleveland has a very soft spot in my heart, I went to college in San Diego. And as soon as I heard that San Diego was going to be home for Content Marketing World for the next 2 years, I did one of those woo, because I'm we're going to go to Cafe Sevilla and have sangria and all of the good things. So I'm excited, because it'll give me an excuse to share all of my favorite places that are also gluten-free friendly with everybody.
Love it.
So I'll make sure everyone's very well fed.
Yes, please share away. That would be fantastic. Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. We've never had Content Marketing World on the West Coast. If there's a place to go on the West Coast, it's San Diego. So
totally agreed. It's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Stephanie, and happy holidays.
All right. Happy holidays, everybody.
Bye, everybody.